I grew up believing my father was the embodiment of American heroism. That was the narrative my mother crafted for me, a story as polished and pristine as the silver-framed photograph on our mantelpiece. Captain Alexander Alex Walker of the LAPD, killed in the line of duty during a shootout with a dangerous armed robber. That phrase was my personal mantra, the justification for every hardship of growing up without a dad. I, Liz Walker, was raised in the reflected glow of his posthumous glory. Our house in a quiet Pasadena suburb always smelled of lemon-scented polish and my mom's apple pies. But beneath that cozy all-American veneer lay a permanent, unspoken sorrow. His portrait young, stern, in his dress, blues with medals gleaming, was my icon. At 17, when all my girlfriends were applying to USC and UCLA for degrees in communications and literature, I didn't think twice. I enrolled in the police academy. Mom cried, "Liz, it's so dangerous. Why would you do this?" I couldn't explain. I felt that by putting on the badge, I would get closer to him, understand him, become a little more like the ideal he represented. My career started on patrol in downtown LA, dealing with endless drunk and disorderly calls and petty theft. Then I moved to the Financial Crimes Division, drowning in paperwork, and finally I got my gold shield as a detective in the Robbery Homicide Division. By 30, I had a reputation as a tough, meticulous, and slightly cynical professional. I had learned to separate my personal life from the job, or so I thought. The day it all fell apart was unseasonably hot, the kind of LA heat that makes the asphalt shimmer. It was August 2023. I was tasked with some bureaucratic busywork compiling an analytical report on cold cases for a departmental review. Most of these files had been gathering dust in the Metro Division archives for decades. I was flipping through them, half asleep from boredom, and then I saw it. Case file, The Whisperer Serial Killer, 2003. The date made my blood run cold. That was the year my father died. I'd never heard of this case. A knot of dread tightened in my stomach. I opened the thick, worn folder. 5 victims, all women, aged 20 to 35, all with long dark hair, all bearing strange, almost ritualistic marks on their necks, a specific pattern of ligature furrows. The perp was a ghost. No prints, no fibers, no DNA. Just the whisper, according to one mentally shattered surviving witness. The killer whispered something to his victims before they died. The case went ice cold and was eventually relegated to a storage box. I started reading, and with every page, a low-grade anxiety blossomed into full-blown, soul-freezing terror. There was the crime scene report for the 5th victim, Anna Kovac, the coroner's report, and then, tucked near the back, a ballistics report that seemed wildly out of place for a case with no gunshot wounds. The bullets recovered from the bodies of the 2nd and 4th victims. They were a match. They had been fired from a specific department-issued Glock 17. I knew that serial number by heart. It was engraved on the plaque, stored in my mother's closet, with his personal effects. It was my father's service weapon. The world didn't slow down. It shattered into a billion pieces. I sat in the dim, fluorescent-lit archive, and the walls, lined with countless cardboard tombs, seemed to close in on me, threatening to crush me under the weight of their secrets. A deafening roar filled my ears. "No," I whispered to the stale air. "It's a mistake, a setup. It has to be." Like a woman possessed, I kept digging through the file, desperate for anything that could exonerate him. And I found it, an internal memo written in his hand. That same confident, slanted script I recognized from old birthday cards. In it, Captain Walker confirmed that his service weapon had remained in his possession at all times. There had been no loss or theft. It was dated right in the middle of the killing spree. I don't remember the drive home to Pasadena. Mom met me at the door, her face etched with its usual concern. "Liz, honey, are you sick? You're white as a ghost." I couldn't tell her. How could I demolish the fragile reality she had carefully constructed over 20 years? I mumbled something about a stressful day and locked myself in my old bedroom. My first instinct was to destroy the evidence, burn it, delete it, forget it. But I was a detective. A relentless, insatiable hunger for the truth was baked into my bones, no matter how ugly it was. The next day, I began my own off-the-books investigation. I was risking everything: my career, my reputation, my freedom. I pulled every string, called in every favor to get unrestricted access to the Whisperer case files. I was looking for a thread, any thread, I could pull. In the witness statements, I found the name of the surviving witness, Sergei Petrovich Doronin. Back then, he was a small-time hustler. Now, according to the database, a homeless alcoholic drifting between abandoned construction sites in the industrial wasteland near Vernon. His home was a derelict concrete shell with busted-out windows, reeking of urine and decay. An old man with a grizzled, matted beard and milky, unfocused eyes was huddled by a fire burning in a rusted oil drum. When I flashed my badge and stated my name, he just let out a raspy, phlegmy laugh. But when I said my father's name, Alexander Walker, his face contorted into a mask of pure animal fear. "Get out," he hissed, scrambling backward. "I don't know nothing. Nothing." He tried to slam a non-existent door. I put my hand on the rotting doorframe. "I'm his daughter. I need to know the truth." He looked at me, and for a moment, I saw something like pity in his clouded eyes. "Your father, he wasn't the hunter, girlie. He was the pointer. You get it? He flushed the quarry for others." An icy trickle ran down my spine. "What does that mean?" "He didn't do the killing himself," the old man muttered, his eyes darting around the shadows, as if he expected men to materialize from the piles of trash. "He worked for them, found the ones who needed to disappear, and they did the wet work. Then they wiped him out too, when he got too big for his britches, or tried to walk away." "Who are they?" My voice was a dry croak. "Men in black. No faces, no names. A shadow. They're everywhere. Now get lost, you stupid girl. Forget this, if you want to keep breathing." I left, my hands trembling so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel of my unmarked sedan. My father? A corrupt cop? A man who led lambs to the slaughter? It was unthinkable. Yet, the ballistics report was a cold, hard fact. I needed to talk to someone who was there. I tracked down the original lead detective on the Whisperer case, a man named Frank O'Malley. He was retired, living out in the high desert near Joshua Tree. His place was a modest, dusty bungalow with a worn-out American flag hanging limply by the door. He was an old, grizzled man with a face like a road map of a hard life. But his eyes were sharp and clear. When I showed him the ballistics report, he didn't seem surprised. He just let out a long, weary sigh that seemed to carry the weight of 2 decades. "I tried to follow the trail, kid," he said, his voice gravelly. "Your old man was a good cop. Too good. He stumbled onto something real dirty, connected to people way above our pay grade, powerful people, and they framed him for it. These murders, they were a message to him and to anyone else who might try to stand up. "Why didn't you stop it?" I asked, my voice cracking with a mixture of rage and despair. "Proof," he barked, slamming his hand on the rickety wooden table. There was no goddamn proof. Every lead I had went cold. Witnesses recanted, evidence went missing. The ones who didn't play ball, they ended up in the morgue. Your father was the sixth victim. Officially, he died a hero. Unofficially, he was silenced to contain the scandal. Driving back to LA, the pieces were starting to form a horrifying picture. My father wasn't a monster. He was a pawn, sacrificed in a much larger, darker game. But a new, more terrifying question emerged. If they were powerful enough to do this 20 years ago, what kind of power did they wield now? My investigation was no longer about clearing my father's name. It was about exposing a cancer that had been festering within the city's power structure for decades. And I knew, with a chilling certainty, that I had just put a target on my own back. The game was on, and the stakes were my life. But I was my father's daughter, and I wasn't going to run. I was going to hunt.